Hey everyone, and welcome to Squidly Bits, our second channel where we give people the best painting tips and tutorials on the freaking internet. And today I really want to give back to you guys because I feel like we can do better. And that is because last year we released our paint sets. And since then we have done, I think, 30 or 40 painting tutorials, but we've never done a video where we cover the decisions behind each selection of paint and how you can get the most from it. But I hope to fix that with today's video. So the initial plan was with the 3 paint sets, with 12 paints in every set, you can paint anything. And Lucas and I, we did extensive testing leading up to making these sets and making the selections. And we started with this set, the Essential paint set. And there is a reason why the paints in this box isn't super flashy. It is because this set is pretty much a complement to any other paints that you buy. These are the paints that we use for any paint job, so no matter what you paint, you are gonna need the paints in here. And starting off, we have a white and a black, and I don't think these need any further explanation, so let's hop on to the next paints in the list. Okay, so the first paints in the paint set are the 6 colors we use for any type of skin that we paint. Dark rust, burnt red, dark flesh tone, sunny skin tone, and light flesh tone. And if we start with the basic Caucasian skin tone, Lucas and I, we usually start with a black primed miniature and do a couple of things. We start by adding burnt red to our wet palette. This we need to get our shadow tone in there. We can then go about it in 2 different ways. We either go with sunny skin tone or with the regular skin tone. Personally, I mostly go to sunny skin tone because it's a little bit warmer and makes the skin feel a little bit more alive. If you go to skin tone, you get a much paler skin tone. If you want to paint like something a little bit more pale, like a skin that's of a zombie or maybe a vampire, something like that, going to skin tone is going to give you a lot more desaturated skin tone. So you take 1 part burnt red and 1 part sunny skin tone, maybe a little bit more, something like this. And that should be a perfect shadow tone for a Caucasian skin tone. Really, really good for that. It looks very similar when we add just regular skin tone as opposed to sunny skin tone, but it is a little bit more pale. So it's gonna look a little bit more desaturated, but still really nice looking. And then as we work our way up on the skin tone, we just add more and more of the sunny skin tone or more and more of the skin tone. So you can see kind of a transition. We'd go from this dark red and then work our way up to this clean sunny skin tone. And then just do the same thing for the skin tone. Start with the mix of the both and then just work our way up brighter and brighter on our highlights. The further up we go, we add more and more of the skin tone. As a final highlight, there's a ton of different colors that you can use. In the paint set, we have light flesh, which is a great like paler skin tone, and it looks really, really nice as a final highlight using both of these 2 mixes. If you want to do an even warmer skin tone, you can add something like an ice yellow, and we do have that in another one of the paint sets. So for this part, I'm just gonna show you how it looks when you highlight up with this skin tone. And on the screen now, you might not see the biggest difference, but these 2 different color combinations, starting with burnt red and then working your way up either to skin tone or sunny skin tone, is going to give you really, really beautiful skin. And then you top that off with just a tiny bit of light flesh to make it look really awesome. When you want to paint like a darker skin tone, usually what I do is I start with dark rust. This is a really nice like shadow tone for darker skin tones. As a mid-tone then, I like to use dark flesh tone if we want a little bit of a warmer brown skin. And I think this one is really nice. It's like a mid-tone. And then as a final highlight, like when we paint Caucasian skin tone, the skin and sunny skin tone is sort of the mid-tones. But with darker skin, you don't want to push the highlight quite as much. So either you use skin or sunny skin tone as the final highlight. But you can also be a little bit sneaky if you want a more like desaturated, darker skin tone. Usually we go from dark rust and then just add sunny skin tone and just work our way up to like a cleaner sunny skin tone. So the first one is a lot more saturated. You have more red tones in it and you highlight up to like a clean skin tone. But with the second one, you get a more desaturated. So this one is closer to the one that Lucas did a tutorial of on Squidly Bits, where you go from dark rust to sunny skin tone. And both look really, really good as well. It's more about where do you place the highlights and how big a surface do you work with. You want to make sure that you have a large area that has the dark rust and then smaller areas with the highlight colors. Funny enough, when we paint non-metallic copper, we use actually the same kind of tones as we do for dark skin. So we usually start with dark rust, we then hop on to dark flesh tone, and then we usually highlight with sunny skin tone. And that type of copper look actually really, really nice. You just glaze in a little bit of hot orange in the end. That one is part of the fantasy set. And when you do that, you have like a super beautiful copper non-metallic metal. And you can see that a lot of the paints that we use in this video are going to be repeating the same colors but for different ways. And then how you apply it on the miniature determines the look you're going to get. So you can get a super reflective metal color using the same paints as you do for a smooth dark skin tone, which is kind of fun to see. But that's also one of the reasons why I think this set is so important, because you see that you don't need a billion paints to get a certain look. You can use the same type of paints, just apply them slightly differently, and you're gonna have a different look. And to the untrained eye, these two paints, burnt red and dark flesh tone, might look kind of similar, but there are two main differences in them. The dark flesh tone has a little bit more orange pigment in it, so it has a little bit more orange to it, while the burnt red is way more red. It's like a super dark red. This one also has a little bit less pigments, so when you start mixing it, this one has a more saturated outcome, while this one comes out a little bit more gray, which works out perfect for a dark skin tone. Both work fine, but for dark skin tone I prefer this one, and for Caucasian skin tones I prefer this one. Another thing that I would like to quickly mention before we hop on to the next set of paints in this set is that light flesh and sunny skin tone are two colors that we use to highlight pretty much everything. I would probably add ice yellow from Dark Future as well. These three paints, we highlight pretty much everything. If it's blue, if it's red, if it's orange, if it's green, we use these three paints as our final highlight for about 80% of our paint jobs. And then ivory and white is used as the final highlight for the remaining 20%. So these paints are super versatile, and learning to mix these with other paints will be super valuable for you. Because if you're painting like a tree, and you want to have highlight on the brown on the tree, well, sunny skin tone is going to be your best friend. Highlighting steel or orc skin, ice yellow is going to look amazing. Highlighting something like cold blue or red, then yeah, light flesh is going to make that look really, really nice. And you can mix around with these. You can highlight red with, either one. So try it out, and you're going to see that you have much more saturated paint jobs compared to highlighting everything with white and ivory. So let's talk about how to use the main brown tones in the paint set. The dark rust we've already shown you guys how to use for skin tone, but this is one of those paints that we use for pretty much everything. It's the base color we use for leather, tree, horns, teeth. The list is gonna be endless if I mention everything. This color is just amazing for the base coat for all of that kind of stuff. And the dark flesh tone is really beautiful for leather, but also for woods. And of course, we have the Japanese uniform, which I think is one of the nicest yellow-brown tones. This one is gonna be, again, perfect for leather stuff, teeth, horns, anything that you want to look a little bit like worn and dirty. It is just a banger paint for that, and the coverage is really nice for this one in the set. And if you want to use it for even more, this paint can be used to shade yellow if you want like a more desaturated yellow tone. You can use it to make sandy bases as well. Using this one and maybe mixing in a little bit of ice yellow or mixing in light flesh tone, you're going to have a really nice Iraqi sand type color, which is super useful to have in your paint mix. Another thing that I really love doing with this one, if you want darker horns, mixing dark rust with Japanese uniform gives you this really like gray brownish tone that is awesome for teeth and highlighting ropes and leathers and all that kind of stuff. And then again, if we mix in a little bit of sunny skin tone, we're gonna have like a super nice highlight color for ropes around a gargant or something like that. We have 3 more paints to talk about in this paint set, and the first one is Deck Tan. This color, I don't think I've painted something in the last like 3 years without using Deck Tan because it is such a versatile paint. This color might seem like just a gray, but here's the thing, it can be used for so much more than that. First of all, we use this as a mid-tone for pretty much any non-metallic steel that we do, because it's such a beautiful paint. But we also use it to paint horns, I've used it to paint leather, I use it to paint stones and rocks. Another good use would be to use it to highlight skeletal bones. If you look at my Warhammer Underworlds warband that I did of the skeletons, and you can either start from like a dark brown or from a black, and it's gonna look amazing. And whenever I want to paint something that's gonna look white, so like a white fabric or a white armor, usually what I do is I use Deck Tan as sort of my mid-tone and shadow-ish. I use this through the airbrush from above, and then I just go in and highlight it using an even brighter tone. So I get a little bit of black kind of transitioned with the help through the airbrush, and then we just go brighter and brighter from there. And lastly, another thing that I kind of want to talk about with this one is whenever you paint something that is going to be gray, you don't need to just use this one. Mixing this one with, say, Cayman green or like a dark magenta to just get a hint of a different tone in there is going to be really nice for something like steel. So let me just do a quick showcase. We can speed it up, and then you get to see how it's going to look when it's finished. So I mix black, Deck Tan, and green to make our first layer of highlights. So guys, there you have it. 2 quick versions of steel using black and Deck Tan as our base, and then just adding a little bit of tones from different colors. Just add a little bit of a color reflection to it that might make it match your army a little bit better. And the last 2 colors in this paint set are 2 inks, and these 2 paints are often not used. And these 2 paints are mostly not used through the regular brush for 2 reasons. They don't have any medium, so they don't really stick as well to the miniature. They are super viscous, meaning that they flow super well. But how do we actually use them? Well, 90% of it is through the airbrush. This skin ink is sort of a yellowy brown tone, and I use it a lot if I want to make like a sunnier skin tone. So I paint with the skin tones that we have already shown in this video. I then add this to the airbrush, spray from below as sort of like a filter, and the skin tones become a lot warmer. I did this for all my Gargants, and I think they turned out amazing. I also use this a lot through the airbrush to filter over painted wood. So what I do is I go in and paint wood texture. I then just use the airbrush to shade using skin ink, and it comes out amazing in a very, very short amount of time. Also really good for leather, actually, if you want to like punch your leather a little bit more. You've added texture through the airbrush, and it looks like leather. Boom. And the magenta ink works in a very similar way. So I use it through the airbrush to maybe add a rosy flesh tone to some areas. If I want to add more vibrancy to blues, I might airbrush with a magenta in the shadow of the blue to just punch the colors a little bit more and add some contrast. This one color, again, super versatile if you want to get more vibrancy to your miniatures and get some tonal variation maybe around the cheeks, the mouth, the tongues of your miniature. Spraying with magenta is gonna just make it pop a lot. So 2 really nice colors. But now it's time for the second paint set, and what is probably the most popular paint set of them all so far. This is the Dark Future paint set. And there are plenty of reasons to love this paint set. But I'm gonna start with 2 kind of self-explanatory colors, and that is the true metallic metal colors, silver and dark gunmetal. We use these 2 colors for pretty much anything that's gonna look like silver or steel or iron, anything steelish. We usually base coat with this color. This is dark gunmetal. And depending on what type of metal that we want to paint, we then highlight it in different levels all the way up to silver sometimes. So if we want to do like a more grim dark metal, usually we just do like dark gunmetal and then highlight it using a mix with maybe 80% dark gunmetal and just a little bit of silver. But you can work your way up to like a clean silver, and these paints mix super well. So you pretty much just need 2 metal paints to make a really nice looking steel. And if you want to paint like a brighter sort of steel, you can do your base coat like a mix, 50-50. Steel and silver, and then you just highlight it using cleaner silver. 2 metal paints. That's all you need. And if you want to have like a nice metal color, you really need to learn to mix these 2 together and blend them to make a really nice transition between the dark and the light. But we don't tend to use washes. Using the dark gunmetal as your base coat should be enough to give you a really nice looking metal color. But now let's hop on to the one that all of you are asking for. It's the non-metallic metal colors. Non-metallic metal is where this set shines, because in my opinion it is the best mix of non-metallic metal colors out there right now. So let's start with the colors that we use for gold NMM. And you've seen us use this in, I think maybe too many videos, so I'm not gonna do too much of a deep dive, but we start with dark rust. We then usually highlight it with a clean Parasite brown. We don't do any mixing with our shadow tone, we just highlight it using a clean one of those. We then add ice yellow and we highlight up more in transitions. So this one is like, you want to maybe add it in 3 different layers before you reach a clean ice yellow. So Parasite brown and ice yellow is going to be the 90% of the work. And then we just finally highlight it using sun yellow, which I think is probably the nicest warm yellow I've ever tried. I mean, there's a reason it's in the set. You usually just glaze like a super thin down glaze of this, and that's enough to make your gold look really rich. And if you look at Lucas Golden Demon entry, all like the gold coins made on that one is made using this set, which I think speaks volume for how good this set actually is. And we have of course already made a tutorial showcasing this, so you can go follow that tutorial. So now let's speak a little bit more about one of the paints in this set, Parasite brown, which I think is very overlooked, because this color can also be used in pretty much the same ways that we talked about with Japanese uniform in the previous one, but you get a slightly different tone. So this one is perfect for horns, for teeth, you can use it for wood. I used it on my gargants for my leather as well. So I started out with dark flesh tone and then worked my way up to Parasite brown and sunny skin tone. And it's a really nice color to use for pretty much anything where you want like a warmer yellow tone. And Lucas also used this one a lot to shade his yellow. So if he's painting with like a sun yellow and maybe you're doing Imperial Fist, you can use Parasite brown as a nice, like lightly orangey yellow shade tone for your yellow. I don't know how to explain it, but it looks really nice as a shadow color for this yellow, which is not to be underrated. And lastly, I think it also works really well for sort of like sun-kissed skin. So if you want to experiment with it for skin tone, I can also recommend it for that. For Steel NMM, this set also has you guys covered, because in here we got Dark Sea Blue. And Dark Sea Blue is another one of those colors that personally I use it far too much. I wouldn't say I use it in every paint job, but pretty much any paint job where I want something a little bit cooler to contrast with, I use it as my shadow color for the dark blue. And for steel non-metallic metal, obviously there's a billion ways you can go about it. You can use brown as your darkest tone, you can use black. But what we love to do, and you've seen us do this in this tutorial, is we use Dark Sea Blue, mix in about 50% deck tan as this will be our mid-tone for the highlights. And then the brighter we go, we just add more and more ice yellow until we reach like a clean ice yellow for the highlight. That's, in my opinion, probably the best looking vibrant steel if you want sort of like a fantasy steel that really stands out. If you want something a little bit more neutral, obviously use black as your starting color, but personally this is my favorite. But that's not the only use for dark sea blue, because we obviously have our turquoise colors and blues in there. Again, this paint set is based off the way that Lucas and I paint and the way that we like to teach how to paint. And when we paint blues, we like to use turquoises because they are just a lot more vibrant. You can of course use regular blues, but for a majority of our paint jobs, like when we paint ultramarines, we use turquoise. Blue squigs, instead of painting them blue, we make them go up to like the warmer turquoise instead. It just adds a lot more oomph to your miniatures, and on screen here you can see a bunch of different squigs or trolls that we've used blues to paint, and I think it looks amazing. Lucas Dragon as well we can include in there. So usually we add turquoise as our mid-tone, and then you have blue-green will be your highlight, and as like a final punch you can use the ice yellow as well. Mixing these three paints, going from dark sea blue to turquoise and then going up to blue-green, it's gonna make for a really, really nice paint job. And then as we said, finally we usually go up with like ice yellow for the highlight, but you can use ivory or any other like highlight color. Light flesh, depending on what the end tone you want to have, you can use the final highlight, whichever one you like. And lastly, we have our magentas in this set. And I think this is the reason why we decided to call the set the Dark Future, because you can mix the blues and the magentas to make like a really nice sci-fi color with them contrasting each other. And these ones I don't think need like a ton of explanation. It's just like a super dark, vibrant magenta and sort of like mid-tone magenta and then the highlight magenta. And then you can work your way up with the highlights using these three paints. And personally, when I paint with magentas, my favorite color to highlight with is Sunny Skin Tone, because it just makes the magenta feel really warm and maybe not look quite as pink. And one of the times when I used this was when I painted my pink horrors, and I think they turned out pretty amazing. So if you want to learn to paint non-metallic metal and do some sci-fi stuff, this set is gonna be so good for you. You should definitely check it out. But lastly, there is one paint I haven't talked about, and that is Snake Green. And this is an express color, and we use it more like an ink. So similar way that we do with magenta ink and the skin ink in the essential set, I use this through the airbrush to shade miniatures, add greens to areas and add vibrancy to shadow. And since the paint is sort of translucent, it does really well through the airbrush, helping to blend different layers. So if you want a smoother transition, thinning this down and spraying it sort of like a filter is gonna do a good job to blend different colors for you and layers. And this is sort of like a cold green ink, so it can definitely read both as green and blue depending on what you spray it on top of. If you want to, you can spray it directly through the airbrush and it's gonna look really nice. You don't even need like an airbrush thinner, it's gonna spray even without that. So really cool color, definitely recommend to use. So now let's hop on to the third set and the one that I think has the coolest artwork. It's the Fantasy Paint Set. And this paint set contains all the lovely greens and oranges and reds that we use on a daily basis. But first, let's talk about one color that anyone should have in their paint set, even if it's not in the essential paint set. This is ivory, and this paint we use for a lot of different things. This is sort of like a final highlight color where you want something to be white without it being a pure white. That's when we use ivory. It's more like an eggshell kind of tone, which I think can be really nice when you like want to highlight the teeth or final edge of a horn or something like that. It can be used for most anything, and if you want to have like a slightly more desaturated final highlight as opposed to maybe light flesh or ice yellow, this one is the one that you should go to. But now let's also talk about the gold colors. This is Tinny Tin and Glorious Gold. And these are the two gold colors that we use for anything that we want to have true metallic gold. Usually what we start with is we shade it with Tinny Tin, and then we go in with glorious gold as our highlight. And these two, similarly to the metallic colors that we used in the Dark Future set, these mix really well. So we used these for the Warlord Titan diorama, and I was so happy with how that came out, which is why these bad boys are in the paint set. I know Games Workshop, as an example, they often like to edge highlight gold with silver, but that often just makes their gold look like silver. You can use these and just have the glorious gold as the final highlight, and it's gonna look really, really nice. As you can see by this Space Marine we've painted in the past, and this massive Warlord Titan we did, and I think it looks just amazing. When it comes to true metallic copper, as an example Nurgle, we just use Tinny Tin. That is the only paint that we use. We just add one layer of this, and then we add the oxidization with a turquoise, and it just looks amazing with that. So you don't need a ton of metal colors to make things look really beautiful. I have once used a little bit of silver to the Tinny Tin and highlighted it with that. And I think that looks okay as a highlight. You don't want to go full silver, but you can add maybe 50% silver to it and it's gonna look pretty okay. Personally, I just prefer not to highlight it or use weathering, and that's gonna make it look really good. So keep it simple to make it look good. There's also a ton of greens in this paint set, and they are my favorite greens. And as you guys know, I paint a lot of green. Whether it's Seraphon, it is Nurgle, Squigs, it is Sylvaneth. I paint green. Let's just put it that way. Usually when I want to paint green, I start with dark green. It's just the best shadow green that I've tried. And I then mix my way up, so I do a 50-50 mix of dark green and lime green, which gives you this sort of emerald green that is super good for orc skin or just as your mid-tone as you work your way up to lime green. But once you reach the clean lime green, there's a couple of different routes that you can take. If you want it to be super saturated, super vibrant, you highlight it with yellow-green, which I think is a really nice color in the set. If you want to do a little bit more saturated, you can go to
ice yellow
and highlight with
ice yellow.
This one is a quite common way that I go. But if you want to go full David Soper style, closest way to get to his orc skin tone or Nurgle skin tone is to highlight it with ivory, which I think works just as fine, but it is even more desaturated. But it's weird to explain because it still looks sort of very orky. Either one of these ways are perfectly fine, but there's just different ways to highlight it. And these greens are very warm. So we have one that is just a slightly bit colder, which is called Scorpio green. It's just a little bit more towards emerald green, but it's just a tiny bit less warm and yellow than the lime green. So it's more a personal preference kind of thing. Personally, I use lime green most of the time, and then sometimes I use Scorpio green. The last green that we have in the set is Cayman green, which I think is the perfect sort of military green color. If you're painting Imperial Fist or if you're doing Nurgle, this color is really, really nice. A more desaturated olive green. There's many different ways of making military green. You can also mix dark rust with lime green, and you're gonna have a really nice olive green tone. It's very similar to Cayman green, but it has a little bit more warmth to it. So these two are kind of similar, but this one gives you more pukish green, and this one is more desaturated military green. So these greens will make you really, really happy. Another good thing with Cayman green as well that we use it for is if you want to paint greenish wood. So if you base coated a rat's horn in dark rust, so it's completely brown. If you go in with a clean Cayman green on top of that, it is going to read really well as a horn, or if you paint it on top of wood, it's gonna read as wood. Just a more greenish hue to that wood. So don't limit yourself to oh, my wood has to be brown or it has to be gray. You can use different tones, similar to Cayman green, to highlight that type of thing as well. And lastly, let's talk about the red and yellow spectrum colors we have in this set. So, start with the two reds, Gory Red and Scarlet Blood. So, whenever we want to paint something really vibrantly red, usually what we do is we start and base coat on top of black with gory red. And then we just work our way up to scarlet blood. And these two colors make for a really, really, really nice tone. But you don't quite reach that like final punch contrast that you want on it. So then you can bring in either hot orange or light flesh tone or sunny skin tone, whichever one you like. But highlighting scarlet blood with a little bit of orange and a little bit of light flesh makes for a really, really nice, warm sort of highlight tone. And heck, you can even mix in a bit of sunny skin tone maybe to it, depending on if you want to go super warm or a bit more towards like the classic colder red. Then you don't need to use the hot orange, you can just highlight scarlet blood with light flesh, and it's going to give you a really, really nice tone. And these are super versatile. You can't just use it for red, you can use it to like enhance skin tones as well. If you want your skin tones to be more orange, maybe mix in a little bit of hot orange to that. If you want it to be more rosy, mix in a tiny bit of scarlet blood into your skin tones, and it's gonna be super pinkish, super quick, because it's super dense in pigment. So it covers really nicely for being a red this vibrant. It's just, again, my favorite red I think I've ever tried. It's just super beautiful. When it comes to the orange, this again is a super nice color that you can use in so many different ways. But shading orange can a lot of times be difficult for people to kind of know how you want to shade it. Personally, I'm a big proponent of shading orange with magenta. We did this on the first Squidmar masterclass. When we did the octopus on the elf's shoulder, we take orange and then we use the magenta to shade it down on the sides. This keeps the orange super vibrant, but it also becomes a little bit colder in the shadows because the magenta has more blue in it. You can also use the skin tone ink through the airbrush, like if you're painting, say, orange space marines. You do the hot orange as your base coat. You then use the skin ink and shade it, and for your highlight, you just use hot orange and work your way up with a little bit of sunny skin tone, so maybe like a 30% sunny skin tone to the hot orange, and then do a final layer which is like 50-60% sunny skin tone. And that's pretty much all you need to have a really nice orange. We have one last color in here, and this one don't need a ton of explanation. This is moon yellow, and this one is pretty much just a colder version of sun yellow. So sun yellow is a very warm yellow, moon orange is a little bit colder. So for Imperial Fists, I'm a proponent of having like a very warm yellow, but Lucas, he prefers having cold yellow in his highlight. And these two just complement each other depending on like if you want to go warm or if you want to go cold. Both are super vibrant and look really nice. They have a really nice coverage as well, which not all yellow can say that they have. But in tandem, these two work perfectly. So just remember moon yellow for when you want to have a colder paint scheme, and sun yellow when you want to have a warmer yellow paint scheme. But as you guys can see with these sets, they very much complement each other. They have a lot of like cross love. So if you want to be able to paint everything, you buy all three of these paint sets. But if you just want to try something out like non-metallic metal, you buy the Essential set and the Dark Future set. Because in tandem, that's when you get the most from your paint sets. And then earlier this year, we released the Special Effects paint set. And this is sort of like the next level set for people that want to take their painting to the next level. The first three are the ones you need to paint anything, and these are the ones you buy if you want to have a little bit more fun and maybe bring even more vibrancy to your paint job. The Special Effects set is not nearly as important. This one only contains the paints that like pushes your paint jobs to look more fancy. So it's packed with 8 inks, anything from black ink all the way up to orange ink that you can use through the airbrush or glazing in to make your paint jobs more vibrant. They complement the inks that we already have, so magenta, green and skin ink. In here you have Seraph Red, red ink, violet ink, dark turquoise ink, green ink, sepia ink, and black ink, and chameleon orange. And all these paints together with the inks in the initial set will give you all the inks you're pretty much ever gonna need. And lastly, in there we also have 4 fluorescent colors that I think is the thing that can make your army stand out on a gaming table. So if you have a Space Marine army and you want to paint plasma coils, or if you want to do lava weapons, getting fluorescent paints is gonna just make everything pop beyond what the normal person can do. I mean, it's been a long video, but I think I covered pretty much everything we use in the paint sets. And hopefully you can get a little bit more from the paints that you have now, opening up your mind maybe on how to use some of the paints like Parasite Brown outside of painting just gold. You can use it for leather and for skin tones and for horns. But these paint sets, in my opinion, I feel like we did a really good job because the last like 3 years, everything Lucas and I have painted on this channel has been done using only these 36 paints plus the special effects and inks. Of course, sometimes we pop in a color here or there for a specific paint job, save some time, but even then, those colors that we use, you can mix using these paints. So if you want to make your life easy, you want to be able to follow our paint jobs and tutorials, make sure to check out the links down in the video description to grab yours. Before we leave, I just want to send out a massive thanks to all our patrons. It's thanks to you guys that we can make this full-time for a living. With that said, peace out.